Hey folks, Steve here with another Dark Valley video. Today we're going to be looking at turn 39. We are in the last stretch of turns, so once we finish up with this turn, there'll just be 5 more, so in the last 6 turns of the game. As I covered in just my previous videos that have been posted this week, I'm actually getting some good time to record, so making use of that as best as I can. We're going to try to knock out what is a mixed weather turn here, which means not absolutely terrible news for movement, but we do have potential. We have the potential to use our airborne corps as the Soviets. We'll see what happens here. Now the reinforcements are going to be really straightforward. There's just a 2-4 German division that's going to get placed on the map. I will probably stick it somewhere in Silesia. The Axis is probably going to use its rail movement to get some guys up into the Silesian region just to help support the defense. And otherwise, we just have a lot of guys up here who are trying to pull back. And at some point now, I might just have to use the modal chit as an extra movement to pull some of our most fragile guys, or most exposed guys, out of the way and in a better position here. This turn should see the invasion proper of Hungary as the Soviets are preparing to cross the border, or at least get up in that direction into Hungary, across the Carpathians. Now that we have sort of the rail lines opened up, that's going to enable our guys to kind of move forward and press the attack, though things are kind of congested. I might have screwed up this whole process by getting just too many guys, down here. It might take a while to get them up where we really need them to be. Otherwise, the Soviets are still pressing through this corridor. At this point, the Axis are out of replacements, so anything that comes on the board now are going to be reinforcement units. There's really not that many left. There's going to be a few more units that come in. But again, truly not much of a saving grace here for those guys. Just taking a quick look around. Yeah, so as I'm looking at the whole situation, you see we're going to get Vilnius soon, and then it's really the question really now is, are we going to be able to catch these guys, break them off, and eliminate that huge amount of units? Or what, right? Because if the Axis can pull these guys all the way back to Germany somehow, if we can manage to pull that off, that may be enough of forces to keep the Soviets from getting their victory condition. And obviously the Soviets are winning the war, there's no question about that, but it's a matter of when, and the game gives us until May 1945 to have taken basically most, or if not all, of the victory point hexes. So we're certainly getting closer, but there's still a ways to go, and time is running out. So what I'm going to do, just a quick intro here. I'm going to take myself off camera. I'm going to do all the replacement, reinforcement, and strategic movement type stuff as usual, all the sort of first couple of phases. We'll get situated, and then we'll look at the activation chits as usual. And again, I will be stuck with the terrible decision of, do I do movement first or what? And I can certainly see a case where maybe this time maybe we do Stavka and we just see what happens. I don't know. There's a lot of risk there. I might have to work out some percentage chances or something, but we'll figure it out. So I'll put a cut here, and we'll be right back. Okay, well, here we are after all that, and not a whole lot of craziness is going on, but I did move some strong units over here, because what I'd really like to do is try to bust through and get closer to Warsaw to get the extra units, and to try to figure out where along the line can we try to break them in half. And that's looking like maybe the best place to do it, though I'll say it's kind of hard to figure out what's going to work best for that. And as I just look around, it's going to be a tough call no matter what here. But if we can cross through and project Zox behind the line, that's going to cause some problems. Because that's really where, between where the Soviets are and the coast is thinnest there, right? So it's less hexes that we have to maneuver around. to cut off the Army Group North. So that's what I'm thinking here. You move those guys via rail. The Axis actually rolled a 1 for their rail capability, so I could not get these guys out. So all that's left are some really weak units in Krakow and Upper Silesia industrial region. Not that they're going to hold the cities very well, but they'll probably have some of these guys up here retreat and form a defensive line. The real key thing is, like, we want to keep the line from being just there, right? We want to keep cracking them until there's no line left to defend it. Focusing, the troubling thing is focusing on 1 hex at a time, maybe clearing 1 or 2 hexes. They can still kind of maneuver some units around where they can fill the gaps. As long as there's a unit there, that causes us to have to combat it. There's no overrun in this game. So as long as the Axis can continue to do that, even if it's, they lose a hex or 2 at a time, they can last the rest of the game doing that for sure. So we need to be able to crack several hexes at once across the line, and I just don't know what I'm missing here to be able to do that more consistently. Maybe I'm just not putting combat factors in the right place at the right time, but we need to be figuring something out here. So I'm drawing some units away from the Romanian theater, trying to get them up towards where the real action's happening. I may have to move even more forces there. But we've got to, ultimately we got to be able to take Prague and Berlin. So it really is all about getting those guys up there. If we can get these guys out of supply, that'll eventually mean we can crack them much more easily and put them into disarray. But we're running out of time. I mean, you figure we've only got, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have maybe 10 combat rounds as the Soviets left in the game, because we're going to have 1 this turn, 1 next turn, 4 across the next turns after that, plus another 4 from deep battle, and that has to be enough to either eliminate the Axis army to where they can't block us any longer in taking the victory point spaces, and I'm not sure we're going to be able to do it. I'm just having a hard time figuring out what's feasible here, and I need to be dishing out a lot more damage than I have been. I think that's the challenge the Soviets are facing right now. They just haven't been able to do enough damage. And I think that speaks to the challenge of this game being, if you're getting unlucky with the way the chits are coming out, that can hurt you so very much that, you could lose the game, it feels like, based on that some of the time, just because we're looking at like these very hard deadlines to hit. And if you're getting the chits come out where it's like move, counter move, then you're going to have a whole turn that's basically a missed opportunity. And how many turns are there even really available? Like, that move, counter move is so frustrating and so likely, right? And I guess I'll show what I mean. So this is like maybe a criticism of the game. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here, right? So here's the chit recipe for the turn, right? We have logistics as usual. We have Stavka. We've got the or chits. We have the just move just move and just combat with a Panzer activation, and modal is still in play. The 4th Panzer I selected because last turn I did the 2nd Panzer. This time I want to have reaction capability around Krakow and Warsaw. So I'm putting the 4th Panzer in. Again, I'm still trying to play as effectively as possible as the Axis, right? I'm not pulling my punches or making bad moves so that the Soviets can win. I am playing as best as I can for the Axis, and they still have some capability to run a proper defense, right? So here's the thing. If let's say, here are the options, right? Soviets have first go. If we'll say logistics don't necessarily matter in this conversation. Modal can only activate so many units, so maybe it's not a big deal. We put him out of it. 4th Panzer can be important, whatever. So Stavka gets played on command, but can only do so many things. So here's what you have in the cup, realistically speaking. You have, things that, in terms of what I'm talking about, matter. So 3 Axis chits, 2 Soviet chits. This will change in January of 45, where we add the deep battle chit back, but for now, this is what we have. So if I had Stavka picked as the first chit, I don't have anything in the Stavka reserve because I found it better now now that we're getting further and further away from Soviet home cities and the action is more in Germany, it matters less for those units to pop into a Russian city and surge forward. What matters now, because I can't put them in German cities that I've taken, I just want to get those units I would ordinarily put in the Stavka Reserve and just have them on the front line, and I'll rail them to where they need to be. So at this point I said, okay, what if I played Stavka as the initiative chit? Well, that would give us a 1 out of 5 chance, 20% chance, that, say, the Axis move goes first. That's really what we want to have happen, right? That's a 20% chance. And then we still have a good 40% chance of one of our chits coming up before we can do much. Now, with the present game position the way it is, we need it to go move combat, right? So we need our move, ideally, to go after Axis move, or we need both of these chits to come right in a row, ideally. Or some version of something like this, would be perfectly acceptable. I would take that, right? But you figure, okay, so if we did it this way, right, we need either move to happen first or we need Axis move to happen last. And then everything else can kind of happen around that. That's what matters. So there's that 20% chance of pulling Axis move. There's a 40% chance of pulling something of ours, which would hurt us, right? That's ending up reality. Now, if we swapped it out and we said we're going to do move first, Stavka kind of doesn't really matter. Then it leaves it to 25% chance. And so there's a 25% chance we would get exactly what we need after moving. But we still have a 25% chance of it being very bad if this comes out first, with these guys kind of not mattering as much when they come in. Because the Axis aren't going to do combat, and the 4th Panzer can only really do so much, depending on when it comes out. It can save a little bit, but that assumes that we've already cracked them with combat. So, it's like it's like ultimately 50-50 chance, really, of this turn actually being a good turn. It's only a 50% chance, right? If I do move first, I'm in position. I'm ready to go. I need this to come out before this. And ultimately, again, if these chits matter less, it's basically 50-50 chance. So if it's this, then that's a wasted turn. If it's this, then we've caused, a lot of pain and suffering on the Axis, and now they have to reform their lines or figure something out. I don't think it's frustrating to know that it's a 50-50 chance at this point. Like, on the numbers, we know we're going to eliminate Axis units, but at this point, it won't matter if we can't actually hit them. That's the problem. So if we did it this way, where we said Stavka's first, right? Then it's a 20% chance this comes first, which is good, but then we need this to come out before this, and we need them to come out, before Axis move. And I'm not able to figure out the percentages off the top of my head without working out the probability there. But I don't know that it's any better than the 50-50 chance. Truly, I truly do not know if it's any better for the 50-50 chance that we're talking about. Yeah, I just don't think I don't know if it's any better. I mean, maybe, if somebody's watching and they've figured out the math here, I'm not willing to sit down and work it out at this point, of how you determine these percentages and probabilities. It's been a while since I've been in a statistics class, but I don't think it's much better. So me using Stavka just to put the randomizer in, there's still an advantage of Axis chits. They don't have flexibility, but I'm still having to hope that the chits come out in an order that makes sense. If I get combat first without movement, then it's still a wasted turn. So which of these things is going to be a wasted turn? It's still decent. It's still a decent chance that it's just simply going to be a wasted turn. So, I just don't know. I don't know. Because I think if either of these come up before this one, that's like 66% chance, right? So it's a 66% chance of whiffing rather than a 50% chance of whiffing. Whiffing in this case meaning, I get a combat without having contact with the enemy. So based on that really poor statistical analysis, and I would love to know what the real answer is. I'm just trying to figure it out. I need to do move first. I have to have the Soviets pick movement, because they at least then have essentially a 50-50 chance. It's really 25-25 and then 50 for things that don't matter. But of the things that matter, it's split, right? It's either I get the chit that I want or I don't get the chit that I want of the things that will matter on the large scale. And 50% chance is better than 33% chance. So I have to go with that. But what's going to be frustrating is if I don't get it, right? If it's move and then the 50%, the 25 but functionally 50% chance happens, that this comes up before this, then it's a wasted turn. And that could still happen. If you figure there's 6, 7, we're in like the last 6 turns of the game, at least, if you just try to average it out, at least 3 turns, that's going to happen. So half the time, I'm going to miss combat opportunities. Is that going to be enough to win the game? I don't think that it's going to be. I'm really kind of worried about how I'm going to finish out this game. What's even feasible at this point, knowing our action economy, knowing what it is. So, anyway, that's enough of that. I'm going to do move. Got to do move first. I've got to at this point. Stavka and Modal will have their impact. Stavka is basically not going to be played at all this turn. There's no point. It doesn't do enough for us. And let's see. Now we have logistics, combat, the move, combat, 4th Panzer. Alright, so all analysis aside, we're going to use movement now to bring the Soviets into contact with the Axis. We'll be crossing the Carpathians in many ways down here in the south to get into Hungary, and we will continue the fight there and hope that it is all enough to hurt the Axis beyond repair. Probably the only thing still counting in the Soviets' favor is that any step losses taken at this point will be irreplaceable, and we could very well see a big breakthrough. It could still happen. It can happen. I need my artillery to hit. If my artillery hits in the center area here, and I get that many, 7 step losses just from doing that consistently, and then I bust through with actual combats, it could very well be we are surging into Germany, the heartland of Germany. Could happen. It very well could happen. And we would easily cut the rail lines and cause all these guys to go out of supply and become isolated, that sort of thing. It's all possible. But we'll have to see how the chits come out. All right, I'm going to do movement, and then we'll come back. Okay, here we are after Soviet movement. I'm starting to bring a couple of excess units kind of down here. I want to beef up this part of the line if I can, because I think I could do some damage there. They're not quite able to get into position. But we're in okay shape. I think the real question is going to be, I need to fix just one little thing. There we go. Yeah, now we're okay. All right. So, this should be okay, right? It should be okay. We're actually up against Riga. We're up against Vilnius. So we're going to knock those guys out. We're pretty close to Warsaw. Down here, that poor out-of-supply guy blocking the railway hex is about to get stomped on by 28 combat factors in the next combat round, and there's not much that the Axis can do really about that. Slow moving through the mountains. These guys are trying to trudge their way up, but soon enough we'll be across the mountains, and then it's going to be plenty of flat terrain snaking up through here. Again, if I can snake up a guy to take Prague and sneak up and take Dresden and be looking at taking Berlin, that would be opportune for us to try, but that's pretty far away at this point. So, all right, so we're going to go to the Cup. Now, again, what really matters here is, are we going to pull Soviet combat? That really is what matters. If we pull, if we pull Axis Combat, no big deal. Probably nothing going to happen there. If we pull 4th Panzer, not a big deal. There's not much they can do right now, other than maybe pull some units back, which I guess would be bad, but we still have plenty of activities we could be conducting. So, I don't know. Here we go. I'm going to pull. We'll see what we get. Really need Soviet combat. Really need Soviet combat. And we get Soviet combat. Well, there you go, guys. Okay, then I'm going to quit complaining, and we're going to roll some damn dice, and we're going to see how bad of a job the Soviets do killing Germans, I guess. That's what we need to figure out. Again, here, all along here is sort of a critical area because there's a lot of bunched up Axis units, some of them very weak, without Zocs. They're just sort of filling the line, and we can start bursting those guys down. That'd be great. What's funny is like a stack of 3 German divisions that are all 2-4 are actually not bad defenders because, combat is done in many cases by step losses. So if it's a 3-2-4 units, right, 3 of them, you take a step loss, then there's still 2 there. It's going to take 3 BL1s just to clear that hex. And BL1s come up a lot for the Soviets here. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting. We'll see how it goes. So I'm going to do these Soviet combats all along the way, and then we'll see what happens after that, I guess. We'll take a look at the board, and then we'll decide where to go from there. We'll be back. All right, so this was a pretty decent combat turn for the Soviets for sure. I'll say that much. We got fortunate here. So we did knock out that one unit for the price of a step, but we're clearing, the road to Hungary is clear, at least for the moment, and so we're applying a great amount of pressure on the Axis. They're going to have to do something. Now they do have these corps back here to help defend, but we'll soon be moving these guys through the mountains. Over here, we are kind of across the Carpathians. The Axis still hold a few mountain hexes, but soon it won't really matter because they're essentially going to just be outflanked, and they're going to have to move back somewhere or rail out or do something of that nature. The only difficulty being, there's sort of this gap right here that I can't really do a whole lot about. I could rail some units over there easily, but I think the main thing is going to be, those units, there's going to be no point for them to stick around. They're going to get cut off, so they'll pull back, I guess, ultimately. So, there you go. You can see there's now a big gap in front of the Silesian region. We managed to, with the power of our artillery, cleared out some units, conducted some combats. Now we took some losses taking those hexes. But you can see now we have a clear path on the next move to surge forward and attack Krakow, and then shortly thereafter, we'll be taking the Upper Silesian region, Breslau, and on to Berlin, essentially, if we can continue to exploit the attack here. Now we still have some defenders along this way. I ended up missing a few artillery shots, but again, the factions here are pretty weakened. Not factions, the hexes. The defending hexes are pretty weakened here. I'm feeling pretty good. If we can get another decent combat action round again, we might just be able to knock something loose here. And in a severe fashion that cannot be corrected by the Axis. Along here, I couldn't do much more. We ended up with just a BL1 near Warsaw. But we are within 2 hexes of Warsaw now, so we are going to get the Soviet units, which will be nice. So we'll look at that as being a gain here. Along this line, there's some BL1s, and then up through here, we failed to take Vilnius. We did try, and we got an AL1 result, which is very hurtful because that hex has a lot of enemy units next to it. They could counterattack. It could be an issue. But over here, we knocked out a stack of units here with an EX result. We forced a retreat, and now we're projecting Zocs behind these guys. We also, as sort of the critical, really important thing here, we managed to capture Riga via a DR result, and we've also now thereby cut this unit completely off, and he'll be isolated, and there's nothing he can really do now. He's stuck because of the way the Zocs are working. Well, I guess actually, you know what? I don't think that's true. the Zogs are not going to project across a major hex side, so he might be able to slip away. I'll have to look at the hex side counter real quick, but I think because of a major river, the Zogs don't actually cover behind him, so this guy actually will get away, probably. Still, not a bad deal, because now we've taken that important port, and that will enable us now to kind of maybe, if we're lucky, cut through here, assuming the Axis can't do much, because we've now lengthened their line. We're in behind their line. So overall, not a perfect combat round. I didn't roll as well as I would have really wanted to, but I think we've done enough damage now that it will be very hard for the Axis to deal with. We need to keep hammering them. That's the important thing. We can't let up. But every step that they've lost now is, again, irreplaceable, and they're going to have a hard time disengaging from some of the contact we have here just due to Zoc placement. Would have really liked to have gotten more in their backfield back here, but not too bad. So we'll go to the cup and be glad that we managed to do what we've done up to this point. So pulling the next chit, and we get Axis combat. So I don't think there's going to be much that the Axis can do here. I will take myself off camera and double check. In most cases, it's just going to be a situation where if they attacked, they'd get a BL1, which hurts them more than it hurts the Soviets. At this point, the Soviets would be glad for BL1s, even if it meant disintegrating a lot of this line. That would be fine. If it meant that the Axis line they're also disintegrated. So we'll certainly take it if the Axis want to try it as the Soviets, but I'm pretty sure the Axis won't. So we'll be right back. Okay, the Axis combat round did actually have two combats. One, it was all in the north, because that's where a lot of Axis attack power is. Here, there was that assault army and that marsh hex. Well, we ended up having to knock it back, basically, with a retreat. So it didn't hurt the Soviet unit, but it did force it out, replenishing a clear, I guess, path out of that Zoc, which is no longer there. I guess that's one way to say it. And over here, they tried to attack that mechanized unit in the forest because the woods hex, whatever, reduced its combat factors, and so it was kind of weak there, and they could have sort of cut Riga off a little bit. But the attack rolled poorly. I mean, it was a decent chance, I guess. It was worth a try as the Axis, but they rolled a 2 on the 2-to-1 chart, and the Axis lost a step, which I took from this hex here that is pretty much doomed anyway. So it was worth a shot, and in some cases we helped clear a retreat path for our other Axis units. So while it wasn't an attack round that was going to be to really hurt the Soviet forces, it did help clear the path a little bit. So we're going to go to the cup, and we're going to pull next and see what we get. Logistics. So in terms of logistics, I think the only thing that was really going to matter was here, and again, I don't think the hex, well, let's see. Riga is behind the major river, which means the Soviet Zoc does not reach past it, which means these guys are actually still in supply, though just barely. I'm pretty sure that's the case. Just barely. And I think everywhere else is fine, though obviously, we would like that to be different as the Soviets. So now the only thing left is 4th Panzer activation and move. Now, there is no Stavka. Modal. Does it make sense to do something with modal here? Well, let's see what else. I think we might end up using modal at the very end of the turn. Let's see if there's anything we can do to help cover the line. So we're going to pull the next chit. It is the Axis move chit. So we'll set that down, and we'll take care of Axis movement. Now, obviously, the Axis are basically going to run for the hills if they can, and they're just going to pull back as much as possible. That's really their goal at this point. They need to get the heck out of Dodge, and I think it's important that this major river won't allow the extension of the Soviet Zocs, because they need to snake around this hex that they're in and get kind of over here. I think they want to shorten the line at Memel. It's probably the ideal place to pull back to, give up the victory hex of vent pills and just pull the heck back, because at this point there's too much danger of being cut off. So they're going to pull back as much as possible, and then elsewhere down here they're going to try to cover the big hole in the line and protect the tenuous position down here. So we'll take care of their move, and we come back. We'll see what's left, and then we'll have the 4th Panzer activation and possibly modal if we can't get things right where we want them with a single move, and we'll go from there. So we'll be right back. Okay, so here we are after Axis move. You can see we've started to pull out into a line that's still somewhat contiguous, though up here, it's a little dicey of what we even have on the board, to be honest. And so you can see a general pullback. We're still holding on to the one city here at the point, because that's as far back, you can see this sort of line here, as far back as they could go, given the situation. And so we're not quite ready to give up that city. We need to hold it maybe for another turn, and then we'll continue to retreat backwards into Prussia. And we should be able to maintain that line. If they can come down enough, they'll be able to keep this line in decent shape, actually, and build up some steps in the critical zone that we've been working on. Hungary is in rough shape. I think no matter what is going to happen, they're going to get overrun, but they'll fight as much as they can to hold on. And it's really going to depend on, where do I send those corps. I can now see a reason to keep them around Buda instead of taking them to Silesia, but it's just such a near-run thing, what we're looking at. So we'll see what happens. I don't think there's going to be much that can be done with the 4th Panzer. Whatever activation I make will be pretty weak. So I think what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to use, I'm going to say 4th Panzer's done, and I'm going to go ahead and use modal now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix up our line in the north a little bit by placing the chit, let's see, here, and activate this section there, and let them move, and that'll be the end of the modal chit. We'd only get to use it next turn, and at this point, we probably would have used them by now. So I'm going to, really quick before the total end of the turn, and by the way, Stavka would be played here as well. There's nothing to move with Stavka, nothing we can do with it. So real quick, I'm going to put a cut, and then I'll just show the adjustment after the modal activation to fix up some of the line here. So we'll be right back. Okay, here we are after that movement adjustment. You can see pretty straightforward stuff. There's some supply depots up here that are kind of, one is actually trapped. It can't move across the rail lines. They've all been cut, and I think that might just count as eliminated. I don't know, but it doesn't really matter, because again, we're about reaching the point where the supply depot markers don't really mean anything once we're in Axis territory. So not a big deal, but yeah, we're certainly pushing the Axis back, but we need to keep on pushing. But that's the end of the turn. Having taken Riga, we're still sitting at 14 victory points. Still, if we were playing Operation Bagration, I think we'd be, had we taken Riga and the other city, we would have been one turn late on winning as the Soviets in Operation Bagration, which I guess is not so bad. But still, I forgot to move this guy up, so I'll make sure to do that here. It's going to be here, I guess. There we go. Yeah, so yeah, that's where we're at. We're going to continue to move forward here. The Axis will aim to kind of shrink down a little bit and restructure the line when they can next move. But for now, they're basically saying that one victory city up there is Soviets can have it. They don't need it. The Axis is doing everything they can to hold on, and they're still doing an okay job of it, honestly. So that's the end of turn 39. We will look to do turn 40 in the next one. Only 5 turns left in the game. I'm glad I managed to get another video done here today with some free time, and we'll look to continue. We might even be able to get a lot of the way through the rest of the game this week. I'm not sure if I'll have that much free time, but I'll do what I can, and we'll keep on rocking it. So Catch you in the next one, guys. Leave your thoughts down in the comments below. Appreciate the feedback. Oh, one other thing. I did look in the rules. There is a note about who gets to go first, Stavka or the modal chit, and it is Stavka gets primacy there. So I was saying the book didn't really say whether or not who gets to go first. It actually does. There's a bullet in italics that says that Stavka comes before the modal or Manstein chit. So there you go. But the modal chit is gone now. We used it to just get in some improved positioning so that we're further towards Germany with that bunch up here. And again, if they're lucky and they can get their movement off early before combat, they'll be able to recede back even further now and be back in German territory, but in better shape than they might have been otherwise. And if we see that there's actually no breakthrough here, then the Axis will definitely have done better than history, because I think historically a whole bunch of units got trapped up here near Riga. But it looks like, though we tried and we got somewhat close, maybe didn't try hard enough. That probably won't happen for the Axis, which could very well be the game-winning factor here. So anyway, that's enough rambling. We'll catch you on the next one, guys. Take care. Keep on gaming. See you later.